Nearly 46. I think, ladies and gentlemen, this president is now headed to the White House. Before then, I think he was enjoying the ride in other official cars, but this is the first time that we see President Biden and the First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden, in the beach. That's the picture there of the president. They're headed to the White House. We'll keep the pictures on the screen and to see how far they go with this and how far we can get the pictures for you as they leave now the Capitol to head to the White House. Tight security. And of course, there are a few people who will be accompanying the president. He has already put up his team. They hit the ground running beginning tomorrow. They'll be signing executive orders as soon as he gets to the White House. We'll also try and get you that picture and, of course, which executive orders will be signed. Very, I still for time. We see him looking at his watch. You know, ladies and gentlemen, right now, Joe Biden is in control of the state. He doesn't make a decision for himself. He can be retained on the ground as far as they wish, and he'll not have a comment. So we'll talk about the implication of his speech in Kenya, but we still have Ambassador Elkanah Odembo on the other side. We'll be talking to him. So is Japhet Kaluyu, former independent presidential candidate and also a diaspora. I have Nikia right here in studio, still with us, and have Professor Elijah Munyi and, of course, Professor Noah still talking to us about what's happening or what happened earlier on in the Capitol. Ladies and gentlemen, let's bring this home before we cross over to Washington once more. And this speech was said to be not a speech for Trump, but a speech for the United States. The reason I'm asking this question is because Trump ignored and failed, not ignored, but failed to mention Biden. The quotas are believed that he has completely failed to recognize Biden as president. However, he recognizes that there's new regime in town. Is there a line that we can draw, or essentially it's one and the same thing, Prof?
I think it's one of the same thing. I don't think it's mature enough to come and say we accept the new President Biden will be taking over. He cannot mention his name. But this has never happened in the history of the United States. And it's the first time that it happened. It sent a very different direction. But the most important thing, Ken, is what I've been telling people all along, is the system in America work. Because it was only 2 weeks ago when they invaded the Capitol, and it is now everything is under control, very gracious, and I'm so pleased to see as many Republican leaders that are there present. So he's taking a time at a real great opportunity to do great things, but real challenges. So you need, as we have said, to address domestic issue, at the same time not ignoring the international issue.
The international issues, and that's what I want to talk about with Nikia. The pictures are right there again. I think they are headed to the White House. We'll keep the pictures on your screen. And Nikia, he can't ignore the international issues. I know you've spoken about the first things he will be doing in regarding to immigration and the rest. And top of his priority actually is COVID-19 and how to bring this under control. The other day he said that the vaccines are here. 100 million in 100 days, divided, I think that's essentially 10 million every single, is it 10 million or 1 million? 1 million every single day for the next 100 days. So the trouble for America right now is how to get the jab to their arms. But even as we focus on America, where 400,000 people have died so far, one of the highest, by the way, what international issues from where you sit would you want to see top of his priority, apart from just the immigration issues, which are still tied with the domestic issues of America? Yeah.
So I think internationally, because I live here and because I love Kenya so much, I think working on policy with Africa, the policy that Trump had was negligent at best. It was non-existent. It really focused on trade, and in fact, trade went down about $14 billion between the United States and America, which led to China kind of taking that first place in terms of free trade and investment. So I would really like to see the Biden administration focus on trade, working on diaspora trade, diaspora investment, because even there was restrictions on investment, on being able to pull money in and pull money out of, take money in and take money out of the country. So I'd like to see him lift some of those restrictions so that free trade can happen, and so that Africa can continue to grow and continue to trade with its partners. So for me, that would be one of the first issues that I would like for him to do. I think the second thing, as was mentioned earlier, is focus on kind of the Cold War between, China and the United States. I think the third thing is work on, and I think at the same time perhaps, is the relationship between the U.S. and Russia, and particularly how Russia and China have colluded to, infiltrate systems to get information from some of our private, Pentagon and things like that, all of our private institutions or secret institutions. So I think those are, he has some real priorities. He has to work on the relationship with Germany again. He has to work on the relationship with the UK. There is a lot of work that he's going to have to do, and the administration is going to have to do.
Right, very interesting. A very short ride indeed. This usually is a walk to the White House. If you have been to Washington, it's a very short ride. So, but it's still historic. We must say that it's still a historic ride. Professor Moy, let me bring this home again before I ask it to you, Prof. It's been said that a Republican government is better for the region than a Democratic government. Do you agree?
Well, yeah.
If you look at the policy, if you look at the policies that have been advanced by the respective Republican governments and what Obama stood for example, in Africa, the argument is if you look at those policies by a Republican president, they're usually better for the region. They are more outlooking for the international community than just the domestic policies. So it's always argued that a Republican president is better for the region than from the other side.
No, I don't think necessarily. I think what happens is that the Republicans are a little bit more careful and targeted. So we know Bush for PEPFAR, and PEPFAR came at a time when AIDS was wreaking havoc, and I think it's stuck and it's very good. The other thing we knew Bush for was the Millennium Challenge Corporation, which was again about aid. Now, Obama did a very significant contribution for Africa in terms of extending the AGOA to 2025, and it's something that Biden will have to deal with now. So, I mean, AGOA is everything for in terms of Africa-US trade relations.
Yet the trading balance is still in their favor. Well, I don't stop it. Yes.
Actually, if you check Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, all these countries, the trading balance may be there, but actually all these countries have been improving their exports since around 2012. So I think for Biden, for Trump, it's easy to say, well, if it was signed during his time, we could have remembered him here for the FTA, which again I think is very groundbreaking for Kenya to come into a reciprocal trade relationship with America. So I think it's something that might be frozen. So the Democrats, I don't think, will be so keen on the FTA, which may not be a bad thing if AGOA is extended. So I think for us in Kenya...
Further than 2025?
Yes, beyond 2025. And as far as we know, the Black Caucus congressmen and women are lobbying for that. So considering that the black community is sort of pro-democratic, and they lobby for Africa, so we would expect that. I think Biden is likely to extend
it, likely. And that will go to his second term if he gets it, 2025.
2025.
It will go to his second term. Well, Ambassador Odemba, I'm coming to you, so is Dr. Kaluyu. But let me give you an opportunity, Prof, to talk to us about a Republican or a Democrat in the White House for this region.
Ken, I concur. It's not one or another.
Yes.
I think that Biden has real opportunity following Obama's administration, really targeted kind of reciprocal relationship that need to, and I need to emphasize the term reciprocal.
Yes.
Aid alone cannot work, for Africa.
Okay.
And therefore, Africans need to really look at AGOA as an opportunity for them to get together and create the ground opportunity for investors. Okay. Take a look at the issue of governance in our own system and our relationship with the environment for investors, and move on aggressively the way Rwanda is moving, and then attract American investors to come in, and so that we can have situations like South Korea, Taiwan, and the rest. Manufacturing and opportunity, because why I'm saying that, China attracted all those, but Chinese understood and learned everything about Americans and what they need. And so that's what Africans need to do instead of coming around with the big basket for aid.
All right. Thank you very much, Professor. Preparations there to receive the Commander-in-Chief, who has just left the capital, and we think he's headed, no, he's actually going to Arlington Memorial, right? That's where he's headed, that's not the White House, and he'll be there for a short ceremony. We'll take you these pictures. If they'll be speaking, we'll also take that live for you. But let me go now to Ambassador. Ambassador, you are in Washington. I'll ask you the same question I'm asking my panel here. Republican or Democrat in the White House?
I don't think it's a question of which of the parties is in the White House. Let me just clarify 2 or 3 things. First, American foreign policy does not change significantly with changing administration. America's foreign policy hinges on 3 fundamental pillars. Number 1, national security. The security of America, the security of Americans, and the security of allies of the United States. Number 2, to ensure that America has access to international resources and markets. So that's about trade and that's about business. So it doesn't matter who is in the White House. America first applies. And number 3, promoting world peace and this idea of balance of power. So those 3 are very fundamental and have been fundamental and have remained consistent over the years. How a particular president interprets those and applies them is what then appears like a completely different policy. But having said that, I also need to clarify another thing, that the President of the United States actually has more influence policy-wise with international affairs and foreign affairs than he does with US policy. And so an American president always has an opportunity to really significantly impact how the United States engages with the world. So America first doesn't mean America alone. So you will see with the Biden presidency, someone who spent many years not just in the Senate, but was also chaired the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So a very experienced person, did a lot of foreign affairs even when he was Obama's vice president. So you will see America resetting on the international stage. And some of the things that you will see President Biden do very, very quickly, today, tomorrow, the day after, he will cancel the US withdrawal from the World Health Organization, for example, a very unfortunate thing that Trump did. He will rejoin the Paris Climate Agreement. He will reinstate, for example, the deferred action for childhood arrivals, what Obama called DACA. So there are some things, the immigration law, that really terrible thing that Trump introduced, he will scrap that ban on travel by citizens from predominantly Muslim countries and also African countries. Those are things that President Biden will do and do very quickly to show that he is a different president from the man who has just left the White House. He has a worldview. He believes in multilateralism. working with others, and even if he is confronting China or Russia, he will not go it alone. He will work with the global institutions, the United Nations, the World Trade Organizations, and so forth. So that would be very refreshing. That would be good for the United States. And I believe that will also be very good for the rest of. For Africa, Africa needs to position itself. This is the time that Africa needs to put itself, position itself so that it asks fundamental questions of the Biden administration. Africa, under the African Union, has its Agenda 2063. This is Africa's aspiration. This is a 50-year strategic plan about the Africa we want. We need to then situate that within the American foreign policy and American interests in the world and ask ourselves what kind of a relationship as a continent do we want to have with this new administration. You touched on one other thing, and I want to just touch on that quickly. The free trade agreement between Kenya and the United States. I think that was a very unfortunate thing. Kenya shouldn't be looking for a free trade agreement with a country like the United States when we have just signed off and we have just launched the Continental Free Trade Area. Africa must trade collectively with the rest of the world so that our contribution to global trade increases from the miserable less than 5% to a much more significant proportion. And so that should be Africa's priority right now. I mean, for Kenya to sign a free trade, let me just give you an example. Kenya's GDP is about 95 billion, half of East African communities. The East African community has a gross domestic product of about 200 billion. That is a drop in the bucket. That is the GDP of the city of Baltimore. The city of Baltimore, just outside of Washington, has a gross domestic product and therefore an economy that is the size of the economy of the East African community. So what kind of a free trade arrangement can we possibly enter into with the United States of America that can be meaningful at all? I think we need to relook that whole arrangement, work with the East African community, work with the Continental Free Trade Agreement, position the continent collectively to do business and to do trade with not just the United States, but with the rest of the world as well.
Very elaborate, well put, but I'd like to take you back to Arlington, where I think it's at 21 gun salute. Let's just listen in, and if it's the gunshots are still, the gun salute is still going off or it's ended, and then let's see briefly if the president or whatever ceremony the president will be conducting here, because this is a very, very significant memorial site in the history of the United States. All right, as we wait for President Biden, perhaps let me bring the political angle to Dr. Kaluyu, because Ambassador Odembo spoke extensively on the economic aspect of a Democratic president and a Republican. But Kaluyu, if you can hear me, tell us the political aspect of a Democrat or a Republican in the office. How is that significant for this region?
Well, two things. In the United States and many other developed countries, what they have done, it will not matter much. The differences that bring the parties and the people of different perspectives together, what brings them together is much more than what sets them apart. What they have done keenly is to make sure the institutions are strong. It does not matter. You have noticed, it didn't matter what Trump did. What happened is that the rule of the law was held, and whoever broke the law paid the price. So it is very important to strengthen the institutions and make sure that the government is not on the way, and they respect the executive, they respect the judiciary, they respect the Congress. Everyone is doing their job. So I would insist in African countries to make sure that that is very, it is put into a strong, focus and target. Very important. One of the things that was different, and I think he needs to correct it, Biden, is that if you look at the Kennedy's speech and also the speech from Obama, they talked of those people who are listening today, huddled in radios in the darkest corners of the world. We give them hope. You notice there was kind of uprising against the Trump by the entire world, and they were kind of escorting Biden to inauguration throughout the world, even the smallest countries. But he did not today address them properly. So it's something he needs to go back and address them. Since I'm an African, definitely give them hope and change, because there's going to be a change in administration perspective and the way things are going to be handled. So he's going to talk, he needed to talk about that change, how he's going to handle it. He talked about it, but he just touched about it. Is something that needs to have more focus. Now, people need to be given hope, the things that are going to happen. And since I'm an African, I think Africa needs to be recognized by itself, because you are talking of a country that it is in average 18 years younger than any other country. We are talking of about 7 trillion economy in 54 countries. We are talking of about 1.3 billion population, 18 years average in all African countries. We are talking of a lot of arable land, 60% has not been utilized as presidency. In fact, what the perspective is in about 2030 will be, because we are young, it's going to be the most educated people, most research scientists, most lawyers, and the most people writing their own laws, because we will be having the most lawyers dictating to the world. And remember, we have the most minerals and the wealth, maybe by far, in the world. Only that our gold is done in New York as opposed to in Africa, and they determine the prices and all that. So African potential needs to be addressed very keenly, and they need to realize the potential that is coming in the next 10 years, and they cannot ignore it. They either listen to the force of reason, or they must listen to the reason of force. So I would like him to go back and address that more carefully. Now, in COVID, we are talking of the first world. America has not been as much affected. It has been affected the most deaths of, but they still have 300 million population. But when you look at the poor countries, the resources to combat COVID has been too much of a burden. And when you have too much burden, financial burden, you are tempted either to borrow or to use the money not necessarily in the correct way. So I would like to see a perspective where he talks about prudent use of resources when the money is borrowed, and also helping these economies to grow. and have that perspective. So I would like to see that addressed, and that Kenya is no different. Our Kenya is no different. We would like people, when they are talking in the campaign trail, we like to see people, when they are addressing people, they talk of a plan, not emotionally whipping people. And, I predict in 2022, it is going to be different. I think the president will be outside the normal mainstream of politicians, because what they are doing is promising, just twisting the things, promising the same thing, looking at broken promises and all that kind of stuff. People have become more smarter, and the pain of the pleasure of politics is exceeding the pleasure. So there's no more games. Either we have to listen or reason and find leaders that will change our lives, or we're going to have a very difficult time drifting blindly into in civil conflicts or in bad economic situations.
Well said. Well said. We'll come back to you, but even the significance, as I come back here to Professor Anikia, the significance of Arlington Memorial, all the presidents, I think 42nd, 43rd, and 44th are all there, except the 45th, who is not there to lay a wreath. Now, this is very significant in the history of the United States. This is where everyone from the United States who's died in different conflicts is laid to rest, and that's why it's significant for a commander-in-chief. And it has been there and since the Civil War. That's 1861, 1865. At the same time, Abraham Lincoln was there. So very significant indeed. That's why you see the presidents there and their spouses. And I also understand that the 42nd, 43rd, and 44th are also there accompanying the president. That's what's happening. But perhaps I'm speaking from this side. Perhaps, Nikia, you tell how significant is this move to have them on the ground at Arlington Memorial this afternoon for them and, of course, tonight for us?
Well, I think the importance is just beckoning back in that America is back, and also tradition. I mean, for the last 4 years, there's been an unconventional, non-traditional president that's caused havoc. And I think just these basic traditions are really important, just to let America know that we're moving back in the right direction. And so laying a wreath, showing respect to men and women who have given themselves over to service of our country, I think it's incredibly important, and this is a very proud moment for sure.
And significant, perhaps, Prof, tell us, why would we have all the previous 3 presidents attending? And this is one of the things that, to me, should disturb the conscience of the 45th.
Absolutely. I think it's very significant. People talk about the most exclusive club being the club of these 4, usually, or 5 living presidents, and of course their spouses. So it's very significant, I think, in terms of maintaining the tradition. And when presidents from different political parties come together in a show of solidarity, I think it sends a very good picture about what elections are and what leadership is. It goes beyond the divisions of the political party. And of course, the chemistry that has been shown by the living presidents, the ones that are here, I think is a good way of starting that healing process of what's going on. But also, I think going back to this cemetery and what you mentioned and what Biden mentioned in the speech about, recalling the Abraham Lincoln, I think he's a very significant figure in the sense that he's very revered, but he led America probably when America was most divided during the Civil War. So I think it again highlights that idea that, well, things might get bad. We could even go as bad as the extent of fighting, but we will be back and we will respect the traditions that have kept America going all these years.
Okay, I know this is not the subject you like, but is this another missed opportunity and many blunders for the outgoing President, Trump? I know you don't want to talk about Trump at all, but we'll talk about him going to jail because the Senate is about to begin the trial.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, listen, Trump, I think, read the room and decided not to come, and I think it was wise of him not to do so, just in terms of what he's done over the last 4 years, and more specifically, what he's done over the last month to the democracy of the United States. So I think while tradition is still holding, as we see several of the former and past presidents, including George Bush and the forever president, Kenyan-American President Barack Obama, and his beautiful wife, Michelle, I think that Trump not being there, I think really would distract, or if he were there, it would distract from the moment of this historic time with the first black and Indian first woman vice president, and the oldest president, who I think is going to usher in some normalcy, some much needed normalcy in the United States. So Trump being gone, in all honesty, I applaud it, and I hope that he remains silent.
Yeah, although I think it's a missed opportunity, because remember, we talked about his speech earlier, and I think there's another tradition that was missed, which is this conciliatory speech that is usually given after the elections and when the winner is announced, where the defeated candidate always goes and says, you know, I spoke to President-elect Biden, and I'm urging you to support him, and so on and so forth. So I think that was missed at the election time. This morning, he could have given that speech. It was missed. And he didn't give it, and I think that would have been a significant way of telling his base that, well, it's time to move on. So it looks deliberate in the way he left it and said, he didn't say, well, I concede, and I wish Biden well, and I think you should support him. So okay. I think it would have been a great thing if he went and joined the presidency.
He would, just like several other missed opportunities. This is another one. Dr. Kaluyu, one thing that I picked out of the speech for the president, and we are watching them at the memorial, and I know you can see where they are before they go to the White House. One thing he said is he called on all Americans, and he said, I will be the president for all. One thing he said, that I'm calling on everyone to join me, because he wants everyone to walk the path he's walking. How is that likely, talking about politics again, and noting that the country was split, the voters, not the country, but the voters were split right in the middle. 74 and about 80 million is, you may say it's a little bit distant, but again, it's so close. It's about 5 million difference in terms of votes.
That is a very great, big question, and a lot of, our African countries should borrow a leaf. Once United States is done with politics, the president becomes, or is supposed, and usually is the case, becomes the president for everybody. The systems are there. You will not, nobody will stop you from getting your social security just because a person or a president of a different party than you support is in the office. So just because it's split in the middle, and don't forget, yes, Trump had quite a number of supporters. But usually what happens is that the greatness of America, and that is what they protect. That is why you saw the world making a lot of noise. They are not used to America splitting themselves or fighting against each other. One of the biggest values is the transition of power. Whoever wins, they respect the democracy and they transition power. So that is one of the biggest characters, and it wasn't happening. So just because it is split 50 and 50 does not mean that there is anybody going to be shortchanged. It is more of iconic who is leading and some of the policies, but majority of the policies and expectation of what must be done will happen, whether it was Trump, whether it was Biden. Even if Trump came back, there are things he couldn't have. There are small things. You see, leadership is one thing, referent power. People want to associate with you. They want to say, this is a leader we trust us, honor us, integrity. And when that lacks, people don't simply want you. It does not matter how good your policies are. If you look at Reagan, when he did his second run, he just swept the entire country, maybe almost the 50 states. He was a Republican, but all Americans, they coalesced around him because not only that, they did not, by the way, they did not like his policies a lot, because economically there was like an up-down economy and he was releasing the beast. So economically, a lot of people did not support him, but because he's a referent power, people want to associate with you. They want to feel you're like kind of fatherly, and that is what they did not get. And remember, America, in a way, is a world police. It has a lot of military force, and it can stop small uprisings around the world. So it's referred to be, world police. It's also a world leader, and it is supposed to lead by example. Democracy is a lot spread from the United States. So, and it has educated a lot of leaders around Africa and a lot of around the world. A lot of people went to the United States for, I mean, if you look our Kenyan, environment, you will see a lot of leaders went to the United States and other parts of the world. So that is what needs to be seen, and that was what is paining America, whether Trump was reflecting honor of the office, integrity of the office, referent power, association power. So all that was lacking, and therefore it wouldn't matter whether he's split in the middle or not. He is supposed and is expected by all Americans to be a leader for all Americans, unlike Africa, where one team leads and then there is careless conversations of who wait till your time, and then when you come, you choose, who you want, and then you press the opposition that is not, supporting you. We need to jump that space. But because you remember in African community, or even Africans, the education is becoming more, people are getting more enlightened. The internet has become more enlightening figure or some sort of system. So people are learning other systems. And now I think going forward, there's going to be a lot of changes. A wave of change is going to sweep from across Africa. And I know in 2022 in Kenya, there's going to be, Kenyans are going to choose the person they think can serve them better and the person who can change their lives. For now, it is too early. Most of the people who are new in the politics let's say in our country, the newcomers, they are busy talking because, even when I was new, when I was a Kurutu, I used to run around and tell people, look at me, I'm here, I'm running for president. But trust me, it's going to be a big awakening. By the time we get to June or July, the story will be totally different. And now I ask my fellow Kenyans to start looking at really what works for them, whether they're going to choose the same kind of leaders and those leaders who have spoken to them for ages and nothing really happens, or they're going to change their lives and choose a different kind of a leader who will stop their pain and misery for ages. So there are many other people who are ready for duty, and we are ready to be vetted and look at what we have. And we are ready to debate, argue, and prosecute the case of the Kenyan people. We are ready for duty.
You're ready for it. Pictures, live pictures from Arlington County in Virginia. The president who's just been sworn in, Biden there, been joined by the other president, exclusive club of presidents. Now Trump is he welcome to that club? I think he's welcome in principle, but he's not attending. Let's just listen in. All right, I'll give you an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, on the other side, and I'll begin with you, Ambassador Elkanah. Just your closing remarks, even as I let you go, because we have to end this. Ambassador?
I think the world is in agreement that the Trump presidency was really an unfortunate episode in American history and world history as well. And one of the things that it has done is that it has managed to divide America so deeply. And so that is what President Biden now inherits. But President Biden, as I said before, because of the many years that he spent in the Senate, if anybody can bring the United States together, who can talk to people in Congress and in the Senate. Remember, all those years that he spent there are still many people, the Mitch McConnells and all those other senators and congressmen and women in that US Congress are people that Biden knows personally and worked with for many, many years. So I think his determination and his commitment to reach out to them, to work with them, I think will serve him well and will serve the United States very well in terms of what they must go through in terms of healing and reconciliation and coming together. It will be good for them, but it will also be good for the rest of the world when that is achieved. So it's a presidency that I think we should all look forward to.
Thank you, Ambassador Elkanah Odemba. And Nikia, perhaps even as we closing remarks, the Senate is supposed to begin trial of President Trump. And we know how this could go. If he is impeached the second time, then he loses his rights, including to come back to the public space, although he says he is likely going to come back in whatever form it will be. Perhaps take us through that even as you close. What happens if the Senate impeaches Trump now that the trial is beginning?
Well, even before I do that, I want to just talk about really quickly the blueprint that Trump has left. Trump, if there is someone that is a lot smarter, a lot more cavalier, a lot more slick, they have a playbook of how to overturn the democracy. And with that, it's incredibly important that the United States and that the Senate and Congress in general and as a whole convicts the president. Otherwise, we can have another insurrectionist in office that's a bit more suave, that can then take over the United States and turn it from a democracy into a totalitarian state. So it's really important, I think, as an order of business for the first week, for Senate to convict.
Yes.
And what was really interesting was former Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, when he talked about the president inciting the riots. We've never heard language like that coming from Mitch McConnell. He's normally kind of side by side with Trump, or he was, and really benefiting from some of the laws that Trump passed, and of course the Senate passed under his leadership. So for me, I think for many Americans, and certainly I'm part of the Democrats abroad, and there's a lot of conversation around that. I spoke to the head of the Black Caucus today in regards to this. I think it's really important that the former president is convicted, and then hopefully there'll be 17 votes from the Republican Party to make sure that that happens. But there has to be a very clear example of what a democracy is, and if you break the law of that democracy, what will happen to you.
All right, that's a very good picture of it's called the Potomac River, is it? That river in Arlington.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called the Potomac River.
Potomac River.
Potomac, all right. A very, very nice picture there. And just close for us this, Professor Mui.
Two things. In terms of the U.S. politics, I think what's interesting in terms of Trump is, I don't know whether he's going to be convicted or not, but I think what is interesting about him is how he has brought to the fore how far the so-called far-right groups are being and emboldened. And I think, therefore, it's going to be very important to contain these groups beyond Trump himself.
Okay.
And whether that's going to be through legal means or through sort of like a congressional hearing like we had in the McCarthyism era, that's up to the United States. For us, I think this is an interesting moment. It's a very important moment, as Ambassador said, for us to start planning on how we can present what our preferences are in terms as a region and as a state and as Africa. So before Biden comes up with a concrete, let's say, Africa policy, I think this would be a good opportunity for us to start lobbying and make sure that when that policy comes out, we have informed it. And I would say that the biggest agenda probably that we have as Africa is to ensure that AGOA is extended.
AGOA is extended beyond the first term of the president.
2025.
2025. Thank you very much, lady and gentlemen. Nikia White, thank you very much for making history. I remember we were together when President Trump was inaugurated.
It was so depressing.
When President Obama left.
This is a lot more hopeful.
This is better for you, being a Democrat.
Well, no, being a good American citizen, whether you're a Republican, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat,
yes.
You saw, if you are of sane mind, you saw what Trump did to the country.
All right.
And whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it's a great day.
Okay, and thank you very much, Rikia.
Thank you.
I hope we'll talk about this. And this administration is one of those administrations to be watched closely, what they could do. I remember the first move when Trump became president, they said, let's see where he goes first. So this is one of those administrations. Thank you very much, Professor Elijah Munyi, USIU. Thank you very much for coming and spending your evening here with us. Professor Noah Midamba left earlier on, but we want to thank him for also contributing to this broadcast tonight. And of course, we had Catherine Gibson from VOA, that's Voice of America, joining us earlier. On the other side on Zoom, Ambassador Elkanah Odembo. Thank you very much for coming through and talking to us. You were there when Barack Obama was just 2 years in office. I remember he taught Barack Obama how to sing in a local dialect. So thank you very much, Ambassador, and also former presidential candidate. You've spoken a lot to the people of Kenya about you. I know you're still looking forward to come back. 2022 is just by the calendar, just next year. I know you'll be back here looking for votes. So thank you very much also, Daktari, for speaking to us. And thank you for watching a News Hour. My name is Ken Mijungu. We leave you now with the live pictures, if I'm not wrong. You said it's the river again. I want to get it right.
Potomac.
Potomac River. All right, we'll take you straight to CNN. I'm still broadcasting this because it's important for the nation. Have a good night. We'll do this same time, same place next week. And thanks for watching. Have a good night and God bless.